what was your first memory that you ever had that made you realize you wanted to be a drummer and pursue a music career?
It came to me, it's a first memory, it's a huge memory. It came to me as an epiphany. I was in high school, serving time in military school for a misspent youth. And senior year, my good friend at school was the drummer in the band for the prom that night. And I left my date. She didn't even stay with me, and I got up to the edge of the stage, and I was leaning on stage like you do at a concert, because they were a really good band. He was a really good drummer, and something hit me in the head like a 20-pound sledge. That's cool. That's what I'm going to do. That I'm going to get in that seat right there. I'm going to rock. And my athletic prowess was a little bit left a lot to be desired. They used me for the football team. For the football, the team did. I was a little guy, just pass him around. So the only other way you could get girls to look at you back in those days was be a musician. So that's what led me down that path.
Okay. Well, it started in high school, it sounds like, at the prom, and then it led on later to being in a band at the Bowery and in Myrtle Beach, like we were kind of talking about, and saying girls to get their attention. So can you maybe share a story or two about some crazy things you experienced there, and maybe those things that led to lessons learned for your career?
Well, we saw some crazy things at the Bowery, for sure. The Bowery was a wild place. It was a carnival atmosphere all down there in the central area of Myrtle Beach. It's all gone now. The pavilion was there, the ride, the arcade, everything was right down there on Ocean Boulevard. And but back in those days, like I said, it was carnival atmosphere. Inside the Bowery, it was soulful. No air conditioning, humid. It was just right off the beach. The salt spray would come in the door. People were just rowdy and really into music and trying to yell louder than the band was playing, and the band was pretty loud. We used to have strippers hanging from chains in the ceiling, and they'd do their thing, and there was just a lot of stuff that went on down there that made it a rich experience. And me as a kid, being a single guy playing music at the beach in the middle of all that stuff, I died and gone to heaven. It set the precedent probably for some very bad behavior later on, but I live to tell about it and can reminisce about it, and it was all good.
Well, this interview is for our site Music Starts Here, and it's kind of an educational networking tool for emerging artists, songwriters, everything. So we want to get tips.
don't give up your day job. Yeah.
We want to get tips for people that are coming to town and want to pursue this as a career. So from that early on career in Myrtle Beach to where you are today, what are maybe some of those lessons you learned early on that you would like to share with those emerging artists?
All right, taking care of business and being an artist, whether it be a singer-songwriter, drummer, guitar virtuoso, whatever, requires your whole brain. And by that I mean right brain, left brain. Very few people, myself included, can be a performer and a musician, dedicated at getting better at your craft, and a businessman at the same time. They're two different animals. I was not good at the business side of it when I started out. I procrastinated. I didn't like it. I didn't want to think about it. I wanted to play. I wanted to perform. I wanted to see the lights. I wanted to be on the stage. I wanted to experience everything that I thought it was going to be, and I did. But my business chops fell by the wayside, and partially, consequently, I didn't do as well financially as I probably could have over the years if I had been a little smarter business-wise in the early onset of the band's rise to success. So I would advise people that are just starting out in this business, if you are not a business person and you're what is it, right brain controls the creative side and left brain is the math and things like that. If you're a right brain person, have the sense to find somebody that is a left brain person and get them to help you. Don't be afraid to ask questions about how publishing works, how royalty distribution works, what points on an album mean, how musical partnerships amongst artists, how that works. Don't be afraid. The only dumb question, as they say, is the one you don't ask. I was a little too proud for my own good to go around asking questions, because I felt like, given my position I was in, I already had to know that. So I didn't want to admit that I didn't. And it cost me. So, don't do that. Be honest with yourself. And if you're a business person, more power to you. Then go get some music lessons. But otherwise, at least either study up on it seriously or get somebody who knows what they're talking about to help you.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of artists come to town realizing. I have the talent, but they don't realize the business side comes with it as well.
And now, more than ever, and I'm way behind the curve myself because I'm the old school guy here, but it's changing faster than it ever changed when we were in it. We were in it before there was social media and digital and all this stuff. Now that's changing every day. So, gosh, it's a lot to keep up with.
Yeah. And like I said before, new people coming to town don't think they need the business side, but they also think coming to town, if they just get that one big break, that they'll be set for a prolonged, successful music career. And in your book, you talk about getting the band's big break at the New Faces Country Radio Seminar. Can you maybe explain that feeling and how it felt as a band, and then maybe how that big break was great, but you had to do a lot more to keep this long, successful career?
Well, the New Faces show was a big break for the band. I didn't get the feeling that you're talking about from that show because I didn't get to participate in it. And had I known more about the business then, that's a case in point of how things work in the business that are not what you think they're going to be. And I tell that story in the book, what happened that night that charted the course for business-wise, some areas that I didn't do very well in.
Could you maybe expand on some of those areas a little bit, or we have to read the book a little bit more?
Well, I want you to read the book, and I want to create a little bit of mystique. But it became obvious to me on that night, if not shortly thereafter, that I was not going to participate in the financial relationship between the band and the label. When we started out, just the idea of getting a record label was like Oz. That's when we really got it made. That's another instructive thing I can tell new artists. That's like graduating from junior high school, and the high school and college is still ahead of you. The real work begins when you get a label deal. That's not when you have it made. That's when it starts. The hard work starts. But I found out that the partnership that the three guys had always had before I joined was to remain just the three of them. And the rest is a lot of the book is how I coped with that, not always in the most productive way. That's something else too. There's a lot of temptations out there, and I can only say this through hindsight, but I learned this because I almost lost what little bit of gift I got to perform. Take care of your talents. Take care of your gift. Nurture them. Don't beat your body up. Don't beat your mind up. Try to stay as straight as you can. In the long run, you're a much better player. I'm a better player. I've been sober for 12 years now. I'm a much better player than I was during the days when I was partying, raising hell, putting poisons in my body and my mind. On a spiritual sense, I mean, if we want to go there, I would even say that the Maker who gives us our gifts got pissed at me for abusing mine so much and took it away from me, because I got to the point to where I could not play. I found ways to force it and make my body and my fingers and my wrists and my arms go through the motion, but I could not play. And it came back to me about 2 years after I cleaned up my act. That makes me a believer right there. But take care of yourself. I'm not trying to be Mother Teresa here or lecture anybody. I can just tell you from experience, it really works, and you'll be a much better player for it.
No, and I mean, that's the truth. That's good advice with any career that you pursue.
Oh, absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely, but it's just that I think the music career is fraught with way more temptations for just general debauchery than most other trades, and we have to fight that, and I found myself being carried along by it for many years, and I don't regret it. I do regret it, but then again, I don't, because there's some great memories, some great times, and I paid for them too.
Yeah. Well, a lot of those memories probably were out on the road, since you were on the road for over 2 decades. So, could you maybe explain one high point and one low point on the road that you had and what you learned from that? I know that's a hard one.
Well, because there's so many high points.
Oh, God.
One of the reasons I call it the high road. My goodness, lots of high points. From band success stories to great nights, individual nights, performances, getting to, I've got a low point for you coming, but
We'll start on the high.
We'll stay on the high. There's so many of them. I just have to pull one out of the air that flashes to mind. I remember we did a tour right before the farewell tour up in the late 90s, and we went out for 70 cities with the Doobie Brothers, a band that from the 70s I'd always admired and loved their stuff, and communicated with through various mental states of inebriation listening to their records. So when we got on the bill with them, we co-headlined a national tour with them. I was in heaven, and because somebody that I so admired, and they were great live, and they were great guys. Everybody, the band and crew, were friends, and it was just such a wonderful feeling to be out with a band that I had admired during my dreaming phase, wanting to get in this thing, and here I was in it with them on the same level. And I just about swooned one night. We were in Manhattan, Kansas, playing an outdoor festival right there by that big dam that holds back the lake there in the north of the town. And the stage was set up at the base of the dam, and I used to carry a 12-speed bike on the bus, and I had been out riding, and I got back about 10 minutes into their set. It was still summertime, the sun was still up. And I rode my bike into the crowd. There were people everywhere, nobody knew me. I had a bike helmet on, my hair tied back. And I remember sitting out there. I was sitting astride my bike in sort of the back of the house, listening to the Doobie Brothers, sounding just like their records, flashing back on all the good times I'd had as a kid listening to that stuff and going, I'm going to be up there playing on the same stage in a minute. It was just, that's a little tiny snippet, but it was so exciting. That just happens to come back to mind. I could tell you a million if I could sit here and think about them long enough. A low point, probably the night that 24-hour period that I went through the metamorphosis of change that it requires to get on the straight and narrow. That's in the book in plenty of detail. I don't want to give it all away because I think it's a really good story, and it was a very close call. I almost killed myself and 3 other people, and although there are lots worse stories out there. I've heard through AA and other gatherings. It was pretty bad to me. And what happened not long after that real close call, I mean, we did leave the road, and that real close call with a motor vehicle accident, there was something that was absolutely awesome on the spiritual plane. And it caused me to make a promise that I live by today. And so it has a positive ending, but when it happened, it was a very, very dark time in my life, and the damaging myself so badly had reached a critical mass, and I was getting to let's see, I'm 60 now, so I was in my mid-40s, way past time to quit that foolishness. And well, just never start anyway, but rough, very dark, like I said, very dark time leading up to that, and then that happened, and it was very difficult for about 2 or 3 years to maintain the straight and narrow. And oddly enough, the hardest part was not so much on the road, surrounded in what people think is the party atmosphere. No, it was at home, when you relax and it's time for happy hour, and party for one, drink and dial, and when you're in your own environment and you don't have to go anywhere, and it doesn't matter if you pass out in the yard, nobody's going to arrest you. So that was very difficult for a number of years, but I'm stubborn, and once I make up my mind to do something, I'm going to do it. And I'm not looking for any sympathy for going through that. That's self-inflicted. It's very enriching as far as how you learn about yourself. And I put it in the book because I want to share that part with other people. And I really want to help anybody that's out there that wants that goal for themselves in the long run. Because I think there's a lot of folks struggling, like I did all my life, wanting to be straight. Even though I was a party boy from hell for 20 years. In the back of my mind, I didn't like that. But I covered it up and went at it anyway. Now the real me is here, and I like him a little better than I did that other guy. He was dark.
Well, I know a lot of people will appreciate reading that story and learning from it. But
I hope it helps somebody.
Yeah.
I really do.
Well, that's a great thing to hear as well. But there were those dark times, but it sounds like the high points, like being with the Doobie Brothers, really shadowed over those. So when you were on the road, what gave you that motivation to get up and do that star performance every night with the same energy for different crowds all over?
Probably because during the dream phase, before I really got into it, before I got a break, it was so intense. After concerts that I would go to, I'd go out and talk to the building. I'm going to play in you someday. I'm going to be, you're going to be mine someday. And there's a story in the book there where there's a little anecdote in there where I got to go back and say I told you so to one of them. And that was a great night. That was a high point too. That's one of those that goes in the history books. I wanted this so bad, and I'm very lucky. I don't know why. I of the millions of chances and the millions of people out there, and why it got to be me, I couldn't tell you. I'm very grateful for that, and I think that's throughout the book. I want you to know that it's not full of sour grapes. I tell my side, there's some things that I'm not going to take the fall for, and I set the record straight there, but I think I did it in a tasteful way. And here's another instructive thing for your watchers. I discussed this in the book about the code of the road, and what happens on the road stays on the road. And that's largely true and should be honored. You have to be very careful what you say in this business. I can say that now because I've lived through it, but when you're getting into it, remember, if somebody in the business makes you mad, unless they steal from you or they hurt a member of your family, if they make you mad, live with it, because you're going to meet them on the way down, or you're going to see them again sometime. It's a small world, and usually the next day your temper blows over, and it's really better to let it go. It never works when you say something bad about somebody in public. The baggage is yours to carry after that, because it's, like I said, it's a small business, and it could be the difference between you making it or not.
Well, talking about those relationships and never burning a bridge in this business, or even with the people you see every day on the road, your bandmates, having that chemistry and finding those people you mesh with is very hard. And people that want to go down that route of being in a band, could you maybe explain how once you find that chemistry, it's hard to find one and then hard to maintain, and what you have to do to maybe keep that chemistry?
Yeah, it's hard to find. It's even harder to maintain. You are spot on there. I think you maintain it through, after the personal relationship either gets old or sours for one reason or another. If you have a mutual love for performing, you can put up with a lot from somebody else, because you're all driving toward the end of the day when it's time to start the show anyway. And that was the case with this band for many, many, many years. Now, I guess that it's still the same, because all of us in one way or another are still out playing somewhere. None of us have quit playing. So I suppose that's true. I feel the only one I can speak for is me. I don't think it ever died in me. It went away temporarily. If you are getting into this business, be aware of the fact that there will be times in your life to where you feel like you hate what you do and you wish to God you would have done anything else. But if you're legit, if you really belong in this business, those feelings go away after a while, and it always comes back. Remember that old song, Rock and Roll Never Forgets? That's what that's about.
That's a good thing, because I know people are happy to see you play and to see you have this happiness now. And I just have one final question, and it'll be about the book. You talked about it just being kind of like you writing down your thoughts to say to your daughter. How did it end up ending up this long project that turned into a novel?
That's a great question. I ask myself that every day. Why did I do all this? Yeah, it did start writing to my daughter, and I don't know, have I already told you, I wanted my dad to do that for us, me and my daughter, and it didn't happen. I go into that in the book, and yeah, I got a few stories together, and it sparked some brain cells I thought long dead, and I was relating stories to some friends around, bonfires and whatnot, and they started telling me, hey, dude, you ought to write that down, man. Someday that's never going to get told. And so I thought, well, okay, but I can't see myself writing a book. That's for smart people. Well, little by little, I got to where I could type pretty fast, and stuff started flowing, and I go, this is fun. Even telling the not so good stuff was sort of perversely fun, because it was cathartic. Mm-hmm. So, it snowballed, I guess, and then a lot of it wound up on the cutting room floor. We have probably around 250, 260 pages, I think, last time the publisher called me with a word count, but probably that many wound up on the editing. So, because as you can tell, I'd like to talk too much.
That's not a bad thing, though. You have to get it all out there.
I keyboarded too much, too. But yeah, what you're doing, that's what I love to teach young kids, hopefully what to do and what not to do. I teach. I give drum lessons at a music school where I live now for a part-time thing to do, And some of these kids, God, I see myself. You know, they're so starry-eyed and they're so eager, and it's kind of a big responsibility because your first teachers sometimes are the most important. I hope I'm doing them right.
No, yeah. A mentor, and I know everyone that will watch this video will think that as well and get the book as well. So.
I hope so.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So I think unless you wanted to add anything.
What's the 60-year-old Mark? What would he say to the 18-year-old Mark? If you could go back and talk to him.
God, that's a great question. Listen to your gut and act on it because it's right.